And excellent. And so thank you so much for joining me today, Nina. I'm so happy to have you with us.
Well, thank
I will properly introduce you, Dr. Nina Kelly.
you. You can call me Nina. That's fine.
All right. Well, and I just wanted to just open up the just open it up for you. I know you have a very interesting background. You've got everything in your background from medical to mythology. Just you've done so many different things. And I the first question I want to ask is what led you to study mythology? Tell us a little bit about that and how that connects with creativity.
Um, well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me today. And what brought me to mythology was as a young person, I was always interested in various religions. I seemed to be on a certain path, and I did it exactly, probably opposite than most people. I studied philosophy first, and then psychology, then religion and theology, and then I moved into mythology. And the reason why I did that was because I was always fascinated by people. I, as a small person, I always observed people and I'd listen to their stories, and then I realized that there were so many different cultures and they all had different stories. And that's really what brought me to mythology, was studying people's their religious beliefs. And I'm using that word lightly because they don't, not all cultures use the word religion, but it's their philosophy, their psychology, their stories, their legends, and even their music. And it just helped me to understand the world better and to understand people better. Yeah.
And well, it's interesting, and I know you've told me about your aunt who
Hmm.
started ARC.
Right. Right. Yeah. So do you want me to say about
Yeah,
that?
if you wouldn't
Oh,
mind, because I think that really points to it too. I mean, she seemed like a very inspirational
yeah.
individual. Oh my
She was,
goodness.
thank you. She was my great aunt, and she had never married, but she was like the mother of so many people, young people. And my great aunt was a school teacher. She taught advanced math and advanced science in high school. And then once she retired, she realized back, and this is a long time ago, back in those days, that any children that had disabilities, i.e., handicaps or physical handicap, or even mental handicaps, they were put in institutions, and she just felt like that they could remain at home. And what happened was, her name was Rosalie Kelly. Rosalie Kelly and Dr. Poire, who was a dentist, she bought some property and had a school, and she started what is now called ARC. And that's where they took the children out of the institutions, put them into this school, day school, and then they could stay home with their families, because when you separated your children from your family, that causes a whole different problem. And she was a great inspiration to me, because when my mother died when I was 7, and when I my first volunteer was at 7.5 at her school, and I remember there was a little girl exactly my age who was physically handicapped and also had some other emotional problems. And I was doing everything for her. And my great aunt told me, she goes, why are you stealing her independence? And I thought, wow, I thought I was doing something good. And instead she corrected me and realized, no, you're there to assist, but let her be her own person. That was a great lesson for me early on in life, and so I thank my great aunt for that. She was quite a remarkable lady. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you trace that back to so many things that you've done,
Yeah.
it that probably led the way, I would think.
Yeah, I think yeah, because that's who she was. And then my mother was the same way. So I mean it's in my DNA. I don't, it's just one of those things. And it's just a natural It was just natural for me, a natural transition to want to be, my whole life has just been in service of people. That's just the way it is, you know.
Well, and in that vein, do you remember when you first realized that you were also a creative? You know,
As a little, I don't know. I can't tell. I can give you probably my first play that I ever did, but I didn't realize I was being creative. But my father had taken me to visit his brother in Texas, and my uncle had this porch, and I remember setting up that he had two geese, and I made them walk across the stage, and I created a story from that, and I sang to the geese, and the geese had to walk, and and then I put together a frog show, a little house with frogs. So early on, I think I enjoyed creating, but it wasn't until later, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. I started thinking I enjoyed making up stories, or I enjoyed um, nature and being playful in that sense. And I guess that's when I became aware that I like the creative world. Yeah.
and what so when you think about that and you think about the writing of Honeybee Tree House, which I believe that was your first children's book.
Well, that was the second one. The first one was collaborative with several authors.
Oh, that's right. That was with
Yeah.
Jack Canfield, right? I think.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, and actually that book is the one that I realized, wait a minute, this is what I really want to do. Because we have different periods of our life. And at this juncture, as being an elder, which I'm embracing, at first I was at first I wasn't you know, but I'm embracing that now. And I realize now it's just a natural transition that in my early life, I spent a lot of time with the elders and then different people in my life. And now I'm transitioning to the younger people because I feel as an elder, um, they need good role models. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that all came about. Yeah.
And in Honeybee Treehouse, you also, I know there obviously there's a huge focus on the bees.
Yes. Yes.
And
Well, that story started here in Boone. And I was sitting out looking, and I walked out in the field, and uh, I just noticed all the bees, and then I just started doing research, and the illustrator and I called her up, and I said, I had this idea, and it's about bees. And so then I bought all these books, and I started reading about the importance of bees and saving bees, um, and then from there, it just uh, it just evolved. And so that's where the story started. And I had my grandchildren with me, and I said, okay, I want to write this book about bees. And they all put their little input in, which was funny. I mean, it wasn't funny. I mean, it was fun because then I realized how enthusiastic the young people were, because they were young at this time, younger, much younger. And even the very last line in the book, to be continued. That was from my grandson. He goes, "Hey, why don't you end it with to be continued?" And I thought, you see, because they became so engaged, because we'd walk and we'd look at bees, we'd look at flowers, and it was a great opportunity for me to teach them, as well as seeing how excited and enthusiastic they were. They and it stimulated ideas. It stimulated their creativity, actually, and their imagination.
well, it was, and what's really interesting about the book is that you put in the back, there are different resources and different places that they can get even more information on the bees and saving the bees and all that. I think that's wonderful for a children's book to have those types of resources.
Thank you, thank you. I thought it was fun, uh, because it's just I've had some great fun with it at schools, and because we actually run out of time. and because they're questions, I love it. I love the excitement of the children. What about this? And what about that? And that makes you realize, okay, I'm on the right track. I've hit a good vein here. Yeah, I like that.
And thinking back to when you saw just how wonderful it was for your grandchildren to participate in this, what's something that adults could do, like, that you could suggest to adults to really spark the creativity in their children and grandchildren? And
The first thing I would encourage is and which parents do, hopefully parents do, is that just observe what your child is interested in. And then take that, like right now, I have a little 15-month-old grandson, and he just loves cars. So my conversation goes around the sounds of cars and the colors of the cars, and then he really gets into it then. So I would observe what they're in, and every age is different, obviously, but where's their interest? And then start developing that. Start exploring their minds, giving them ideas of, well, what do you think about this? Or what about that? And that's when they become very, very engaged. It doesn't matter what their age is. They communicate differently, but the engagement is very exciting. And I'm learning that more and more with children with different ages too. Because obviously my children are older.
well,
know.
and what's it like for you when you go to the schools and you're meeting with the children and
Oh, it's cute. I tell you, I'm having flashbacks now because they sit down on the floor and then you're there with the book. And then the minute you start with the book, start reading, there goes the hands. Well, what about this? Well, what happens here? You know, and then I actually have to ask permission because is it okay if we just kind of go on the side here and start engaging? Because to me, it's a lot more fun to have the children asking questions because that shows that they're interested, they're inquisitive about what's next, and they ask a lot of questions about bees. And then it's interesting because I've also had the experience of where do you go to write? They ask those questions like, oh, there was this one little girl. She was so cute. She goes, "Do you have a hiding place that you go and write in?" Uh, And she goes, "I go to the corner of my closet." I mean, it's really cute, you know? And then everybody else goes, "Oh yeah, I have a place too." And it's that to me is so exciting because that's where the energy comes from. That's where the imagination starts. And that's where the creativity, even the minute you respond to that, they go, "Oh yes." And then they really get engaged. Yeah, it's exciting.
so where did you come up with the idea for the tree house?
I am from South Louisiana, and we have 300-year-old big old oak trees. So I love trees. So I knew that tree had to be in my very first book. And I met with Herman. I said, I want a huge, large oak tree because the oak trees, when I was young, we would climb on the limbs of the tree and play. You talk about imagination. We were conquering the world. We'd walk on the limbs and see how close we could get to the trunk. That's where the tree came from. So then I thought, okay, I'm talking about bees. So and then the book had to do with these young girls going to visit their grandmother, you see, and that's how that all was. I sat down and used my imagination.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful. I've got it here, but I think it's just gonna be X'd out and then it's beautifully
Oh,
illustrated and so forth. It's just a lovely book. And then obviously you've got other books, Athena, Athena the Brave.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Athena.
Well, Athena is my grand dog. And she is my son's, and that's another thing the kids get a kick out of because I go, yes, Athena is my grand dog. And they, a grand dog, And so she's a real Pomeranian, and I took care of her when she was very, very young. like 6 weeks though for, and so, we have this bond. So she is my grand dog. So we have a bonding there. And Athena, not only is she a small little white Pomeranian, but in her own right, we have a crew called Crew of Barkus, which is a Mardi Gras crew in New Orleans. And it is the only dog parade which is held in the French Quarter. And its sole purpose is to raise funds for sheltered dogs. So the so Athena was the queen of this parade, and you have a float and you walk and you're throwing things, and all the dogs, everybody who has a dog brings their dog to the parade. So you're throwing doggy goodies, things out, and we raise a significant amount of money for the SPCA as well as other sheltered dogs and so forth and so on. Athena she is also an emotional support dog. And as tiny as she is, her personality is like a 2-ton gorilla. I mean, she is not afraid of anything, So she has quite unique little personality. And I wanted to write a book about her after I did Honeybee Treehouse, because first of all, I had those grandchildren for the first book, and then I said, okay, I have to write about Athena. And then I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity to teach lessons. So Athena the Brave is about kindness and the power of words and how important words are. And obviously, it takes place with many other dogs in this story. Yeah.
Well, and I love how you came up with the characters in that story. You had, what is it, Brutus and Victor,
Mhm.
and yeah, the you who could forget that race?
Right. Yeah. And see, not everybody's fair in a race, you know, and that came. And the one who was not so nice learned a big lesson in that book. Yeah.
Yeah, and really, I love that one. I love all of them, but Athena is just she's endearing.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yes, she has been invited to go. When I go to school, they all go, "Oh, Athena's real." And then one day at school, before I went, I brought her. Now, not during the reading, but I brought her just I said, "This is Athena," because I mean, she only weighs 2 pounds with about 20 pounds of hair, but she a lot of hair, and they just could. Oh, the children became excited, very, very excited about that, about Athena, because she's real and they can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and do we provide a preview of maybe what's coming for Athena and the Honeybee Treehouse?
Well, I think now that she has been visiting me here, and Athena loves flowers. And of course, with springtime comes all the bees. And so I think we're going to have a combination with Athena and the bees are going to meet. This is going to be fun, and we'll see what storyline they create. You
Yes.
know?
And I think that's gonna be an exciting book coming out in the future.
Mhm. That's right, because the bees communicate with Athena and Athena communicates with them. And I wonder what message they're going to send. You never know.
No idea. And, when you're thinking about the children and the stories and everything, um, and you have a parent that's just kind of trying to get their feet wet, getting their child to be more creative, maybe to engage a little bit more in reading, and how would you suggest they do that? Like, what would be some steps they could take?
um, well, I would ask questions. That's what I would do, because the natural transition is always that a parent begins to read to a child. They're introducing books to a child, and children love books. I mean, they really do. Right now, my grandson not only likes to be read to, but he likes to chew on the books as well because he's teeth. So, he's really engaged in these books. But it's interesting because what I find and what I have found, even throughout my whole life, is the minute they choose a character in a book, and it's maybe not always Athena, it could be something else in the book that their eye will catch. And the minute that's just being observant, and you stimulate a child by pointing out what, asking them questions. And then when you start asking a child questions, even the little one that I have around now, it's amazing because they get engaged and they have their favorite books too, by the way, or their favorite characters. And I just think that have the parents ask questions, have the parents expose them to as much as possible. Libraries now all have readings on Saturdays and books and very interactive. So it's quite it's quite engaging, I think. Um, anyway.
I think, well, and do you think that creativity can be taught, or is it just something that you're born with?
No, no, I don't. I think yeah, and we innately have creative minds. And Holly, I haven't looked at this data probably in about 20 years, but 20 or so years ago, I keep saying 20, maybe it's longer than that, but 20 years ago, there we come in with we come in with creative and imaginative minds. And by the nature of our environment, by the nature of our family, we're always encouraging and stimulating that activity. What happens is a child from the time they're born to about 7 years old, their imagination is phenomenal, and which i.e. stimulates their creativity. Once they start going to school, we kind of put them in more structured formats, and it's been proven that there's a dichotomy there because you're trying to discipline them and you're guiding them, but yet you're hampering some of that imaginative spirit. So it's to find the happy balance. That's where I guess the parents come into play, or grandparents, or whoever is guardian of the child, or the children, is to keep them on a disciplined track. So, but on the other side of the coin, you know, I go back to asking questions, or watching them and engage in what they're engaging in. Because
Mhm.
children, I think matter of fact, I know they're fascinating, you know, and they have a lot to teach us too. They really have.
That is for darn sure. That is for darn sure. Uh,
Right.
when you think about ways, I know, because it just seems like that line between the discipline and between, okay, you've got to be disciplined, but now it's time to be creative.
Mhm.
It seems like that's a hard thing to bridge as a parent or a grandparent, because you want to be like the disciplinarian, and it seems like you're putting your child in a box.
Mhm.
But I there's got to be a happy way to be able to encourage the creativity at the same time.
You're making me think of a term in music, timing and tempo. It's a balance between structure, but even in structure, there's creative imagination. I'll give you a prime example. My grandson was doing a math problem, and the way they do math now, I'm like, wow. So I did it the way I learned math, and same answer, the right answer, but I did it a different way. And he goes, "Oh, no, 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 this is how we have to do it." I'm thinking, well, yes, because that's the way you're doing it in school. But aren't there always other ways? And so maybe that's a good way to stimulate creativity as well. And it doesn't, not necessarily in a math problem, but it could be in any other kind of problem, or any kind of, it's a good, there, you always, to me, there's always teaching opportunities. And those teaching opportunities are engaging opportunities, you know, and, um, and when you engage a child, like I'll go back to observe the child. You know, when most mothers or parents or fathers, they sing to their children. Most of them do, or because you know, music is in our landscape, and now it's just traditional for many cultures. So, how does a child react to that? That's you know, you see what I'm saying? It's unstructured, but it is structured because you're teaching them rhyme and rhythm and you know different beats. And I just look for, I'm not answering it exactly, I guess, the way I'm answering it in a creative way. You have be flexible, but seize moments, seize opportunities. And that's what I would think, you know.
Well, and there is something to be said that our imaginations get somewhat squashed a little bit through that whole experience of being in school and, and
Yeah.
so now I just want to move to the next, just a quick uh little bit of time on the book that you're releasing next, which is Life in the Key of G.
Yeah.
And that really talks about um, the whole occurrence of grace in our lives, I think. Grace and gratitude. And so, but this is where also your mythology comes in
Mhm.
and really showing that there is something beyond the world that we see.
Oh, absolutely. I'd like to first say, I'd like to speak to mythology. Mythology, once I finished my studies, which I don't think I ever finish, you know, they're always, but once I completed that, I never saw the world the same. I mean, I see with a totally different lens now. Um, and so that's number one. I just see things so differently. Number two, to address the book, Life in the Key of G, these are true stories about the resilience of the human spirit in times of tragedy. And it's also all those unknown factors that step into our life. You know, and stories. There again, everybody has their story and everybody has their take on their story, you see. And then in one particular, as you brought up mythology, in one particular story, I happened to meet a stranger that literally saved my life. And I kept calling him my angel, my angel, my angel. And he said, "Oh, you keep talking about angels, but I believe in dragons." And I thought, I thought that's when mythology kicked in. I went, "Oh, do you know that there are good dragons in there? You know, some that aren't so good. But the Chinese believe that dragons are very strong and they save you." I mean, I just immediately thought, "Wow, am I glad I knew that story?" I wrote, you know, I didn't want to go down the dark track, you know, because it had been a very traumatic experience. And this man, I mean, he truly was an angel to me, you know, because I'm here today because of him. So, you know,
Well, and when you think about this and you think about the intersection of bringing the myth and so forth and to the children, helping them, there's just that line where they have to know that there's a world beyond the world.
oh, I think the children see the world beyond the world very early on. See, that's when we go back to structure. There, if you listen to children when they're little, and I'm telling you, little, or you know, I'm gonna go back to 7. I mean, they are so much clearer than we are.
Mhm.
See, and that's the time to tap into these children because and encourage it. You know, we have to live in this world for sure, but that doesn't mean that we have to put a lid on our imagination. You don't want to do that. I mean, golly, Edison, Edison, Ben Franklin, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, Look, Einstein said that imagination's greater than intellect. So think about that. He's one of the greatest minds of all time. Um, Tesla. I mean, he was so creative. It was his imagination that encouraged his genius. You see,
It,
it's a dance. There's a very fine line there. And I'd love to say this, when you have your intellect, which is why you're going to school, but you have your heart, and those two need to come together. And when they come together, man, the world's everything.
well, and now let's talk a little bit about the advent of AI. So, you know, we I think everyone on this call grew up during the time when we didn't have calculators for math problems, at least, or they were just coming on the scene.
Well,
So
Jackie probably did because she's very young. I can see her.
yeah, yeah, I think Jackie's behind us. She's
Yeah.
she's
We
she's
grew up the
younger.
old-fashioned way.
But but when the calculators were, being bandied about, and just the idea that you can't bring a calculator to school because it's going to shut down your ability to do math, or now it's AI. It's kind of AI is the new calculator.
Mhm.
And it I love AI. I think it's a tool. I think it's a great tool. But one of the things that I almost feel like the people who said, if you use a calculator, it's going to shut down your math skills. You're never going to be able to do math on, yourself. What do you think about AI in terms of the creativity for children and adults, really?
Well, what do I think about AI? When I'm an elder, okay, so I'm the oldest on this. I I believe that AI can give you ideas, but it's like everything else. If you have, I I encourage everyone to don't let AI do everything for you. You know what I mean? Because then it's stealing your creativity too. I mean, great ideas. Okay, I don't know. You can use anything as an example, but take that as a tool. It's like cooking a great culinary dish. You have all you have it all laid out in front of you, but it's your touch. It's like when we in New Orleans, we make a roux, and everybody goes, oh, it's just oil and flour, full of flour, excuse me, but it's your touch. It's the way it's your stirring. Same thing with creativity. You have a tool there for AI, but it's your touch. It's your imagination. It's your input. That's what's the icing on the cake. And that's how I think it's here. AI is here. I would never, never, never um, just let AI do all the work. Mm.
I agree. I agree. I think it's a great tool.
It's
It's
a-
not, but it's not the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said. I mean, you have all the great chefs in the world, but they're doing the work. You see, a piece of music. I mean, you have the notes there, but it's the musician who puts the passion in it, who makes that touch.
Yeah, and we know that AI is taking a lot of what's going on in the music world, and it's
Yeah.
just not the same. It's not the same.
I thought about it's interesting because I thought about someone. Once upon a time, I was involved with the international piano competition, and the Chinese, beautiful technical. I mean, they were great at technique, but the passion wasn't. There's when you're playing an instrument, not only do you need to know the musical rendition of it, but it's that heart, it's your passion that you put into it. That's what makes a great piece of music. And I'm speaking just from my perspective, which is limited, but it's the same thing with writing. It's like, okay, I have this book, I have all these reference books. That's great. I'm getting ideas, but it's pen to paper or pen to
Yeah.
computer.
Head to hand to heart,
Oh,
right?
yeah, right. It's your passion. It's the passion. The passion is what gets you to the finish line. It's what to me, that's what creates the greatest product is the passion.
Y yes, and the imagination, and
Yeah, and that's
so so Nina, do you wanna share about your latest project that's coming out with the children's anthologies? This
oh
is so
yeah.
exciting. This is a very exciting this is I'm gonna let you share it because it's
It's a we team. Yeah, I'm really excited about this because we have created this anthology, which is going to be coming out and going to be presenting it this month to the world. And this is where we're going to be inviting children to take the book Honeybee Treehouse and choose a character or choose a storyline, anything that they gain from this, from the book and anything that they gain from the book and write their own story. And the story, it's going to be limited between 500 and no more than 1,000 words. um, and so it'll be interesting to see. And on top of that, this book will be published. So we're going to have a collaboration of stories. There are going to be two age groups from 5 to 8 and 9 to 12. And we'll have these stories in, it's going to be called Honeybee Treehouse Kids. And this will be our first anthology. Um, I'm really excited about this. And this gives the children, number one, they get to use their creativity and their imagination. Number two, it's going to be published and it's going to be out there. And with all the stars in alignment, we'll hope to get this into like an Amazon bestseller. This is what we're striving for. Now, after that's done, think about this. If that doesn't stimulate somebody to go, wow, I'm a published author and a young published author, that encourages them to to go ahead and think, okay, I have another story, or I want to talk about this, and then go back to their school or go back to their group, whatever group they're in, and share that they number one, they overcame their fear and they took on the challenge. To me, that's big because you can have a lot of excitement, but it's that next step of just doing it, seeing finishing it. So it's to me it's very, very exciting, and I think it's great for the children, and it's also a great way for them to go back and encourage other children to use their imagination and their creativity to create. Some write, some sing, some dance, some do athletics, but it's a good way to get going, you know.
And do you foresee other, other requests for anthology, in terms of maybe Athena the
Absolutely.
Brave, maybe things like that? I mean, this is gonna keep rolling, right? This is gonna be a rolling
Oh yeah, what's that old saying? This is the beginning of something big. Da 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 da. We can get this show on the road.
I mean, it's a lot like the chicken soups. You know how, Jack Canfield, which you were part of,
Yes. Mhm.
created chicken soup for the soul and all of that.
Yeah.
This is the children's chance.
This is the children's chance. And children they want a voice. I I am, I have to actually you just brought this touches me because if you give a child an opportunity to speak or to become engaged, it is amazing. And it's so good for them. It's so good for us too. Let them have a voice. And children have a lot to say and a lot to teach. And it's good. And they can become their own role models, you know. It's
Yeah,
good.
this is very, very exciting, and
Very
I
exciting.
we have
Yeah.
an October 1st date for, due date,
Oh, yeah.
deadline date.
Mhm. Yeah, so then the final submissions will be October 1st, and then we will have it. We're looking to have our publication before the holidays. So this will be a great. It can go in school libraries, it can go to classrooms, it can go to grandparents and parents and friends and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, wasn't there a show a long time ago, Kids Say the Darndest Things?
Art link letter. Yeah,
Yeah, this is kind of along those lines, except
it is.
yeah.
Yeah. You know what's going to be fun is to see, because we'll start off with the honeybee and then we'll see with Athena, but it'll be interesting to see their perspective. How do they take a story and whether will they become the activist or will they become a bee? Will they become the tree? Will they be, it'll be interesting to see. Or will they take on the grandmother? It'll be, I think it's going to be interesting, fascinating, and also what perspective do they bring to the table? You know? Because then you get to, once you have children writing, you'll go, oh, wow, this is how they think. We may think we know how they think, but we might not. Be interesting. Yeah.
I think it I think back to when I was a child. If someone would have given me an opportunity like this, I would have seized it like nobody's business
Yeah.
because it's just so fun. You're making up, you're really realizing that, and this is one thing I've always said is we're the ones who have the pen to write our lives, right? We do it. We do it one moment at a time.
Right.
This gives children that very same permission. That's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. I can sit here and read the story, but I'll tell you my first experience was at a children's museum and the little faces, and they kept going, well, what about were you afraid of the tree? Because the tree was so big. So one child picked up on the tree. The other one goes, yeah, but I'm not sure about bee. It'll be interesting to see. And then they're listening. I mean, it's gonna be, I think this is it.